Okay, so as we look at this first one, let's go through the volume here first. And to find volume, step one, let's go on, is always to find, unless it's a sphere where it doesn't have a base, it's always to find the area of the base. Now, what shape is the base of this? This is a square. So its area is just side times side, or 14 feet times 14 feet, which is 196 square feet. So that's the first step on almost any area, or any volume, I should say, is finding the area of that base. So now then our next step, step two, is going to be directly to find the volume. Now if it's what we call a prism, like a box or whatever, where it has the base on bottom and on top, the volume is simply the area of the base times the height. Now this is not a box, this is a pyramid, so it's area of the base times the height and then divided by 3. So this is going to be 196 feet squared times the 24 feet of height divided by 3, which is going to give us, what, 1,568, I believe, cubic feet. How many of you had that for the volume? Is there anybody that has not sure how we get to that? The biggest thing is remembering that since this is a pyramid, you have to divide by 3. We need the area of the base times the height. Next, for surface area. We need the area of the base. Well, we already have that from doing the volume. So we have the area of the base equals 196 square feet. So then we need to look at lateral area. And for lateral area, there are 2 things we need to know. One is the perimeter of the base. So step 1 was to find the area of the base. We already have that. Step 2 is to find the perimeter of the base. Well, this is just a square that is 14 by 14. So we could do 14 times 4, or just add up 4 14s to get 56 feet is the perimeter of our base. Now the third thing we need to know, or second thing we need to know for the lateral area, but the third thing we need to know in calculating surface area, is the slant. If this were a box, the slant is the same as the height, the length of that lateral surface. But it's not a box. So we need to find the slant going down the side like this. And to do that, we draw in these sides here. This side is just our 24 foot, our height. This down here is 7 foot, half of the length of the side of the base. So we have 24 by 7 there. So 7 squared plus 24 squared is going to equal our slant squared. So 49 plus 5, 76 equals our slant squared. Adding those together, 625 equals our slant squared. Square rooting gives us a slant of 25. So that's 25 feet. So we have a slant of 25 feet. So then our lateral surface area, step 4, would be to find the lateral area is going to be the perimeter of our base times the slant. And then since these are triangles, because it's a pyramid, it's divided by 2. So that'll be the 56 feet times the 25 feet divided by 2, which is 700, right? Square feet. So then the last thing we need to do is to find the total surface area. The total surface area is just adding up. The area of the base, 196 square feet. There's only one base here, otherwise we'd add it in a second time if there was a top to it. Plus our lateral area of 700 square feet, giving us that total surface area of 896 square feet. How many of you had that? Just a couple of you. Surface area is a little trickier than volume. Let's jump over to this one. Finding our volume. What's step one? Perfect. We got to find the area of our base, which since this base is a circle, it'll be pi times radius squared. So that'll be pi times 8 squared, which is going to give us, what, 300.96? Or 200.96, thank you. This will be inches squared. What's step two? Well, you're going to need that for surface area. I'm just going to follow the same pattern I did over here just to kind of get it into steps for you guys. We use the area of that base now to find the volume. We just take that area of the base, 200.96 square inches, times a height of 24 inches, which gives us what? 4823.04 inches cubed. Why didn't we divide by 3 or anything there? Because it's not a pyramid or a cone. It is just the area of the base times the height, period. We're not dividing by anything on those. The reason we divided over here was because this was a pyramid. It comes to a point. So it's divided by 3. So that is our volume. How many of you had that right? Okay, so volumes we seem to be doing okay on. It's the surface areas that are a little more difficult. Now for this one, the surface area is going to be easier because it is just a regular, what we call a regular solid, a prism. It has a base that sits atop of it that's the same as the bottom. So step one is our area of our base again, which we already have is 200.96. We already did that for our volume. The next step, for lateral area, we need to find the perimeter of our base, which is just going to be pi times diameter because it's a circle. So that'll be pi times 16, sorry. Pi times 16 inches, which is going to give us 50.24 inches is the perimeter of our base. Do we need a slant? No. We're just going to use our regular height, which is 24 inches. So there was nothing for us to figure out there. Since this is a regular solid, the height is equal to the slant of the surface. So the lateral area is just the perimeter of the base times the height, and we don't have to divide by anything. So it's going to be the 50.24 inches times 24 inches, which is 1,205. Perfect. So 1,205.76 square inches. So we can finish this off. Our total surface area is 200.96 square inches plus another 200.96. Notice this time we added it in twice, where over here we only did it once, because over here there are two bases. There's one on bottom and one on top. plus the 1205.76 square inches. And that adds up to, what, 1406? What's that? 1607.68. Perfect. And that is in square inches. So for this one, we had a volume of 1568 cubic feet and a surface area of 896 square feet. What would the volume be in cubic inches, and what would the surface area be in square inches? So when we go to do conversions, remember when we have squared or cubed units, it changes the conversion factor. That doesn't change this number. The 1568 is not cubed. It's the unit that is cubed. So now we're going from feet into inches. Normally we'd multiply by 12. But now it's cubic feet into cubic inches, so we're going to multiply by what? Instead of 12, it's going to be 12 cubed, right? 12 times 12 times 12, which is 1,728. So 1568 times 1728 is 2,709,504 cubic inches. How many of you had that? One. Okay. So let's step back a second. Questions on where the 1728 came from? Remember, that's just because a cubic foot is 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot. So it ends up being 12 inches by 12 inches by 12 inches, which is 1,728 cubic inches in 1 cubic foot. Does that look familiar? Yeah, the 15. What I did was this. I had my 1568 cubic feet over 1 times 1 cubic foot is 1,728 cubic inches. Cubic feet cancel out. I just shortened it up. So then for my square inches, I have 896 square feet. I know that 1 foot is 12 inches, but how many square inches are in a square foot? Remember, we figured out like this. 1 foot equals 12 inches. To make it into a square foot, I have to square this, right? What's 1 squared? 1, and then a foot squared is a square foot, right? Well, we have to square the other side of the equation too. What's 12 squared? 144, good. An inch squared is just an inch squared or square inch. So 1 square foot equals 144 square inches. So then the square feet cancel out. This is 896 times 144, which gives us 129,024 square inches. Does that look familiar at all? A little bit. Down here, this is inches squared. Yeah. This one was inches cubed. Yeah. So now over here for volume, we got 482304. And for surface area, we had 1607.68. So for this one, find the volume in cubic feet and the surface area in square feet. So for the first one, our cubic inches into cubic feet. Now it's still 1 cubic foot is how many cubic inches? 1,728. Cubic inches cancel out. Now since it's on bottom, I'm going to shorten this up. It would be the 482304 times 1, and then we'd have to divide by the 1728. So we're just going to take the 4823.04 divided by 1,728. You get 2.79 is what we'll round that to. Cubic feet. It always amazes people because, 4,800 cubic inches sounds like a lot, and it's less than 3 cubic feet. So now down here for our surface area, we have the 1,607.68 square inches. We'll put that over 1. What goes in our conversion factor? What's going to go on bottom? What unit? Square inches, inches squared. Square feet will go on top. And we know that 1 square foot is how many square inches? 144 square inches. And again, the square inches cancel out, but this time the number's on bottom, so we're going to have to divide again. So 1,607.68 divided by 144. 11.16. Do you have a question? Okay. So 11.16 square feet. What do you think? So for this one over here, we have a volume of 2,000,000, what is it? 709,504. Cubic inches. And a surface area of 129,024. 129,024 square inches. That figure was 14 and 24, right? What if I shrink it so that it is only 6 feet high and 3.5 feet wide? What would the new volume and surface area be? That's what I want down there. So if you look at this, what is our ratio of lengths? Well, we went from 24 down to 6, didn't we? Which is a 4-to-1 ratio if you reduce it. Any questions on how I got to the 4-to-1 so far? So then my ratio of areas is going to be found how? What do I do to my 4-to-1 to find my ratio of areas? Well, you can look right at There it is right there. Look right at the units. The units are squared. The ratio has to be squared. 4 squared is 16. 1 squared is 1. So to find my new area, I use a 16:1 ratio. My old surface area was 129,024 inches squared. And I cross multiply and divide. 1 times 129.24 divided by 16. Gives me 8,064. And of course, that'll still be square inches. Anybody come up with that? Okay, that one we're struggling with a little bit more. How about for volumes? How do I find my ratio of volumes from my 4:1 ratio of lengths? Well, we're going to cube it. Very good. 4 cubed is 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. 1 cubed is 1. So we're going to use a 64:1 ratio for volumes. The 2,709,504 cubic inches is the old volume, the larger volume. We're going to have to cross multiply and divide. 1 times that 2 million divided by 64. So 2,709,504 divided by 64. 42,336 cubic inches. Anybody come up with that one? Does it all look familiar at least? Yeah? A little bit? Well, let's try it over here. We had a volume 482304. Cubic inches. And we had a surface area of 1607.68. Square inches. And the old picture was 24 inches tall and 16 inches across, correct? So in our new picture, we're 12 inches tall and 8 inches across. Find the volume and surface area of the new one. Where do we start? Well, the first thing we have to figure out is what? The ratio of lengths. Good, yeah, the 24:12. So the ratio of lengths, 24 becomes 12, or you could have done 16 becomes 8. Either one will reduce down to a ratio of 2:1. From that, how do we find the ratio of areas? It is squared, good, which is going to give us what? 4:1, perfect. So then we do the 4:1 with the 1607.68 square inches on top. And we cross multiply and divide, which is going to give us basically 402. 401 point, what is it? 92 square inches. How many of you had that one? Okay. Where am I losing you? I'm going to stop for a second. Do you guys understand where the 4 to 1 comes from? How do we get to that? Take the ratio of lengths and you just square it. Square each number to get the ratio of areas. Yeah.
When I did the first one, I did 6 over 24.
Yep, that'd be fine. So then you've got 1 over 4. Yep. Yep, and you can keep it as 1 over 4, and it would be 1 over 16, and you just have to put this on bottom instead of on top. It would work out the same. Yep. Yeah, your ratios can be flipped over as long as they keep everything matched up. It just flips over the other ratio too. Our ratio of volumes then is going to be found by doing what? Well, we have our 2 to 1 ratio of lengths. What are we going to do to that to find our ratio of volumes? Cube it. Very good. Which gives us what? 8 to 1. 2 cubed is 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. 1 cubed is 1 times 1 times 1, which is 1. So 8 over 1, what goes over here? Perfect. 4823.04. That's inches cubed. And we will cross multiply and divide, which will give us 602 point. What's that? 88. All right, that sounds right. Cubic inches. Anybody get that one right? So that's kind of a review of pretty much all we did last week, or a good share of what we did last week. I wish we could, because we really could spend like 2 or 3 weeks on this stuff, and unfortunately, it's just not a big enough section of what you guys need to know for your next class to spend much more time on it. The good news is we're going to move on to something slightly different today. But we are 49 minutes into it, so we're closing in on our first break. So what I'm going to do to finish off the first hour of class is you guys had an extra credit question. Now, some of you said you emailed me an answer, but you did it over the weekend or after I checked email on Friday. And I haven't checked my email today, so I'll know who sent what when. So I'll know who was first. But does anybody have an answer they want to share? Why is it worth $4?
Well, it just, after all the figuring and that, it comes out the document $4 and it goes for 6 if you take. Because they had to have an odd amount, so.
Yep. Very good. The way it works out, the hint I gave you was to make lists and look for patterns.
Yeah, it took a while to get that pattern.
And the key to it was the whole amount of money they got for the cows. So just make a list of the number of cows they have. I'm going to cheat and I'm going to use Excel to make my list really quickly. So there's the number of cows. The amount of money they got, the dollars they got, would be equal to the number of cows squared, because the dollars they got per cow is equal to the number of cows. So we'll just do that quick. And we'll format this one to make it look like my money. Come on. There's no decimal places. So that's the amount of money they had after they sold their cows, depending on how many cows they had. Next, we need number of sheep that they would have bought. Well, if they only had 1 cow, they didn't have enough to buy any sheep. In fact, they couldn't buy any sheep until they had at least 4 cows, because it was $10 per sheep. So, if you look through here, that's how many sheep. At 4 cows, they could have got 1 sheep. At 5 cows, they could have got 2. At 6 cows, they could have got 3. At 7 cows, they could have got 4, and so on. The key is how much money was left over. So that's how much money was left over after each purchase. Notice none of those numbers is bigger than 9, because if they had $10 left over, they would have bought another sheep. But what matters is the ones that gave us an odd number of sheep. That's not what I want to do there. Rid of that. There we go. We need to highlight the ones that have an odd number of sheep. So like this one would have bought 1 sheep. This would have been 3 sheep. 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 19 sheep. There's an odd one. 25 sheep. There's an odd one. 28, 32, 36, 40, 44, 48, 52, 57. There's an odd one. 67's odd. What do we notice about all these that give us an odd number of sheep? There's always $6 left over. If I kept going, it would be the same. Here's an odd number of sheep, there's $6 left over. Here's an odd number of sheep, there's $6 left over. If you look through the pattern, you could make this list forever if you wanted to. I'm going to stop here and just assume it's right. It's actually a quirk about, these are what you call perfect square numbers here. It's actually a quirk about perfect square numbers. That any number that's a perfect square, if it has an odd digit in the tens place, so an odd number of tens, the ones digit is always 6. So that means no matter how many cows they had, if they had an odd number of sheep, they had $6 left over. So the goat had to cost $6. Therefore, the dog was $4. Cool. I'll make sure I get that. I'll look through the email and find that. Did anybody else have that answer and come up with that? It's one of those problems where I love that problem because when you look at it, it seems like you don't have enough information.
No, it looked like it was going to be the deceiving answer.
Yeah. Weird. But it's very, very straightforward when you make the list and look at it. There are a lot of problems that I've encountered in my career where there isn't a direct answer for it. That there's no formula that I know of that'll answer it. No way to calculate it directly, but if you look at it hard enough and you go through it, see that list things out and look at it, eventually a pattern appears and you can use that pattern to figure out the answer. Okay, it's 9:55. It's just a touch early for our break. Well, let's go ahead and take our break. And we'll come back at 10:05.